All right, the clock says it's 4:30. I'll call the meeting to order. CAMPO, our meeting of Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. I'd like a roll call, please, Brianna.
Chair Novak,
Here.
Vice Chair Maloney.
Here.
Member Bagwell. Member Casanelli.
Here.
Member Dodson.
Here.
Member Erb. Member Schutte.
Here.
Ex officio Kapler.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. All right, move on to item number 3, our first opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to make some comments first thing? And we have some other action items, and there'll be other opportunities as well. So, all right, seeing none, I'll move on to item number 4, approval of our minutes of the November 12th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or changes?
I would like to move approval of the minutes from our meeting.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, onto our public meeting item for possible action. Our first item is, hold on, amendment to our tip, if I remember right.
Tip, tip, tip.
Yep. Discussion and possible action regarding a proposed amendment 25-06 for CAMPO's federal fiscal year 2025-2028 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, with the amendment making changes to multiple projects listed in Appendix 3, including changes in funding amounts, schedules, and project descriptions, and updating the program funding listed in Appendix 1. And Jared, you're going to take us through this one?
Yep. Thank you. Jared Cragen, Transportation Planner. The CAMPO Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, for federal fiscal years 2025 to 2028, is a federally required prioritized list of fiscally constrained projects. As referred in the document revision history, the proposed amendment 25-06 will move preliminary engineering to federal fiscal year 2026, move construction to federal fiscal year 2027, and change the project title and update the funding amounts for the College and Fairview Preservation and Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. The second change will be moving construction funding to federal fiscal year 2026 and update funding amounts for the Solomon Road School Routes Improvement Project. The proposed amendment also updates Table 1 and Appendix 1 to reflect the changes made to projects in Appendix 3. All proposed revisions are incorporated into the attached Exhibit 1. The public comment period was open on November 22nd, 2025, and ended on December 6th, 2025. No public comments were received, and with that, I can take any questions.
Okay, I think this is just a normal activity, and we are now in federal fiscal year 2026 that started October 1st, and it looks like we've updated things to keep things on track. Any questions or comments from everybody? This is pretty straightforward. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Public comment?
Oh, yes, you got, I keep forgetting that one.
I know, we'll help you.
Do we have any public comment on this one? I said we were going to have opportunities and I missed it. Okay, here we go. Seeing no public comment, now I will ask for a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the amendment as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, agenda item 5B, and this one is for discussion only. Discussion and presentation regarding the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's annual federal obligation report, which lists projects to which federal transportation funds were obligated during federal fiscal year 2025. And Jared, you're going to walk us through this one and shows where we did actually spend the money in the last fiscal year.
Jared Cragen, Transportation Planner, for the record. CAMPO is required to annually report all federal obligated funds for projects within CAMPO's Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. As reported on packet page 63, there are 6 projects with FHWA funds that were obligated in federal fiscal year 2025. Packet page 65 shows 2 projects with FTA funds that were obligated in federal fiscal year 2025. The federal fiscal year 2025 federal obligation report was posted for a 14-day public comment period in accordance with CAMPO's public participation plan from November 22nd to December 6th, 2025. We did receive one comment on packet pages 63, 64, and 65. The tables listed there, they show federal fiscal year 2024, where they should be showing federal fiscal year 2025.
The title.
Yeah, titles. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions, and I think that might have been my public comment when I was reading through it. I'm sure some of you saw that too.
A couple of us nailed
There's
that
quite
one.
a bit. So I think it shows we're making progress here, and you guys are doing the feedback. And if any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, and again, that was just for discussion only. Thank you, Jared. Okay, moving on to item 5C, another action item. Discussion and possible action regarding certification of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan and federal fiscal year 2026 safety performance targets for the Jump Around Carson transit system. And Marcus, you are our transit lead, so walk us through this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcus Myers, Transit Coordinator. As an operator of a public transit system that receives Section 5307 grant funds from the FTA, Jack Transit is required to comply with the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP final rule. To meet FTA requirements and maintain Section 5307 funding, transit agencies must review, update, and recertify this plan annually. In coordination with Jack's contract operator, the PTASP has been updated to reflect annual performance metrics from federal fiscal year 2025, safety performance targets for federal fiscal year 2026, as well as updates to the name of the CAMPO Chair and Chief Safety Officer. In federal fiscal year 2025, Jack Transit had 1 injury, 0 assaults on transit workers, and 8 collisions. Of the 8 total collisions, 4 were non-preventable or not-at-fault accidents. Targets for federal fiscal year 2026 were set to remain consistent with actual performance data while striving to reduce collisions. Lastly, it's important to note that there are no consequences or penalties for meeting or not meeting these safety targets. And with that, I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, again, this is something we look at annually, and I think, I guess one of the benefits is most of the routes are on lower speed roadways, so that definitely helps, but some of them do get pretty busy. But I didn't really have any problem with the report or your new targets. Are there any other questions or comments from other members here? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like these collisions that were reported this year were reported for the first time this year. Is that correct? I looked back at the previous report, and it looked like the only thing that was established there was for major incidents or accident, and you're just expanding the measurement parameters this time?
Correct. As part of the PTASP final rule, adjusted some of those targets.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the folks up here? I'll open it up to public comment then. Do we have any comments from the audience at this point? I guess not. It's mostly staff back there. It's okay. All right. I will take a motion then.
Okay. I move to approve certification of the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan, including the federal fiscal year 2026 safety performance targets for the Jack Transit System as presented.
I second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. We're on to item 5D, and again, this one is for discussion only, so we can ask her questions a lot. Discussion and presentation regarding the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's 2025 Transportation Network Monitoring Report, which presents transportation-related data collected and analyzed within the Campo planning area. And Kelly, you're going to walk us through this, and again, it's one that we see on a regular basis, so what's changed in the past year?
Thank you, Chair Novak. Kelly Norman, Senior Transportation Planner. So this is just a short presentation of some of the highlights of the 2025 Campo Network Monitoring Report. For tonight, it's going to work. What other buttons? Wait. Almost all the data presented this evening and within the report is sourced from census data. This data can tell us where people live, work, how many cars they have, how long their commute is. The more we know about who lives within Campo, the better staff can plan for transportation needs in the area. This map shows the census tracts from which we obtain most of the data that comes, that is sourced within the Transportation Network Monitoring Report. The Campo population is up to 89,485 persons, an increase of 336 people from last year, and about 5,000 people from more than a decade ago. The population pyramids to the right show the difference in sex and age distributions throughout the Campo population. The people in their 40s and 50s in 2013 are now in their 50s and 60s, so that little bump, went up 10 years. The chart on the left here is showing households along the top line and persons per household in the bars below. Campo's been consistent with a 2-person household holding steady at about 37%, along with the 1, 3, and 4-person households holding steady at their normal rate throughout the last decade. On the right is a graph of households and their income, with the number of households again on the top line and income brackets within the bars below. So this graph shows a significant decrease in households making less than $25,000 and an increase in households making more than $150,000. So we see those columns staggered in 2013 become a lot more even in 2023. The graph on the left here shows comparative fatality rates. The state of Nevada is in the blue, the national rate is in the green bar, and the Campo fatality rate is a light blue line. Campo's fatality rate has been lower the last couple of years in 2023 and 2024. In 2025, as Rebecca mentioned a couple months ago, there have been 4 fatal crashes in Carson City alone, which is a 100% increase from 2024. To the right is a map of the severe crashes between 2020 and 2024 within intersections. Staff organized a pavement survey of Carson City and Douglas County earlier this year. Regional roads are holding steady at a 67 PCI in the fair range. Local roads are estimated to be about 53 PCI in the poor range. This slide shows where housing is predicted to grow through 2050. Understanding where housing is growing in comparison to where employment is growing can give planners a better understanding of where people are traveling to and from during those morning and evening commute hours. Both of these maps, or all 6 of the maps, show where the darker colors, that's where the denser either the housing or the employment on both of these maps. These are also within the draft regional transportation plan. Since the Carson Area System Management Plan was completed, staff have been monitoring TTI, the Travel Time Index, and the Planning Time Index, or PTI. Travel Time Index is a ratio of the travel time during the peak period compared to the time it takes to travel during free flow speeds, and it's an indicator of unexpected delays. Planning Time Index is a measure of the day-to-day variability of the driver's travel time, where a PTI over 1 indicates less predictable travel times day to day. Staff has been monitoring these corridors since 2021 and have made a comparison between 2021 and the latest 2024 data that we have from RITIS. So the green numbers indicate a decrease in TTI or PTI, and the red numbers indicate an increase. The green boxes on the right indicate reliable planning time index. The yellow is moderately unreliable. So let's look at an example. US 395 along the bottom there, where travel time index has increased, but the planning time index has decreased. What we can understand from those numbers is that at sometimes it takes longer to travel along that corridor, but it's at predictable times. So it's predictably unreliable because of, usual congestion,
7 a.m.
commuters,
to-
exactly. This slide shows the existing and planned level of service through 2050 within the constrained travel demand model scenario, which includes all of the planned funded projects within the regional transportation plan. Commute times continue to increase slightly year over year with an average of 23 minutes commute time. Staff analyze where people are commuting. And on the right, you can see there are 19,000, a little over 19,000 people that live and work within Campo. There are also almost 16,000 people that come from outside of Campo to work within Campo, a little over 20,000, 21,000 people that live within Campo and work outside the region. And again, from those maps within the network monitoring report, we see where they are coming from. They're coming from Reno, they're coming from Sparks, they're coming from Dayton, and they're coming from Gardnerville. And then some in other areas as well, here and there. Staff staff tracks bicycle and pedestrian counts along the 4 main complete streets corridors, downtown, South and North Carson, and William Street. Staff's compiling the final report for the Tiger Grant for South Carson, which shows that there has been a consistent increase in bicycle counts since the multi-use path was built. That'll be part of our story of the completion of the data for that grant.
Kelly, can you go back on that one?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure on scope on any of this. That's individual bicycles counts? Or is it they went past it in the morning and came back? So is it a duplicated bicycle count or a certain hour of the day? What's in the bicycle average so that I understand? Like if I'm looking at your South Carson, or says in 2024, 39. That's just past the counter. So it could be the same bicycle more than once, or is that 1 hour of time or?
These are averaged over the year for a single day. So these are daily averages. So if somebody traveled to somewhere and back, it would count them twice.
Okay, it could.
Mhm. However, they traveled twice along the corridor.
I'm still trying to get, was that 39 individual bicyclists on one day for an hour in time that it captured, or you had the counter out there for the whole day? And how, whatever bike, whether they went once, twice, three, doesn't matter how many times.
We keep the counters out for 2 weeks at a
2
time
weeks and average it over the 2 weeks.
every season. Oh, in addition, there are permanent counters now in downtown and South Carson that are counting every day. And so we have a better
longer
average.
average that you
Yes.
can ascertain.
And with East William Street, we plan on installing a permanent counter, and the same with North Carson.
And when we put the grant together, did anything, just when I look at it, did we have a targeted goal or what we were trying to achieve with making like a complete street or bicycles, that if our count was 8 average and now we're at 39, is that something we targeted within the grant when we applied on the Tiger? Trying to remember. I just want to know if we're hitting the goal of expectations.
The goal of the Tiger grant was to increase safety within the corridor, increase access to businesses, and create a multi-use path, a safe off-street facility for bicycles and pedestrians. We've seen bicycles and pedestrian numbers that have increased, and then we also look at crash data from pre and post construction.
And we're faring well, on target, not so good.
Mayor Bagwell, in the grant application, there were no targets. We intended to, like Kelly said, provide a safe use for all modes, and then with a promise to track the modes to see if they increased.
Well, that's the question, though. So we're hitting, I guess for us, though, the answer is when you improve a road or you do something and say, we're going to add this and our objective is to do it safely, are we hitting, and let's just do it differently then, any national targets? We're better, worse? I want to make sure what we're doing is not making pedestrians not safe. That's what I'm trying to get to. That it's good, we opened it up, we're making complete streets, we're doing this, but are they safe? Are the two things intersecting?
Mayor Bagwell, I wanted to first note that, I mean, we're talking about two separate things here, and I just want to clarify here. So we're talking about the CAMPO monitoring report, and we're happy to provide the data. The Tiger grant may be more appropriate at the RTC side, but I can report that we have seen, as Kelly mentioned, as Commissioner Maloney mentioned, that we have seen an increase and there were no set targets. In terms of crashes, we have seen an increase in crashes compared to the pre-grant condition. So that's what we're going to be reporting in terms of that. But if we want to do a full report as part of the Tiger grant analysis, we can bring that back to the RTC. But I think from a CAMPO perspective, we're focusing on the data that was collected for that purpose.
That's fine. I can live with that. Data in and of itself, I'll just tell you, is useless. I need context for me to know whether the data, what it's telling me. I guess that's what I'm asking, is for the public to understand the report that's going to go somewhere. Are you just telling me it's good, we have more count?
So this is reflective of the data that we're reporting, but this is not all the data that we're
we have.
reporting to.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
more. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think if you're going to focus on South Carson and bicycles, it's gone up, right? And when you count bicycles, you don't stratify if it's somebody pedaling or it's an e-bike, right? It's just somebody going past the counter.
Yeah.
Pass the counter.
Yep. So I
Pass the
think
counter.
in general, it shows that it works. And we hadn't mentioned it yet, but the calendar years of data changes a little bit. Not all of these are consistent, but you use the latest data that you have, right? Between census or NDOT or your own things. It's the latest that we have. And most of it's in 24 or even 23. So there's always a time lag in this stuff. So, you can't go on the internet and click and say, how we doing? It's not that accurate, but we give it as best we can. So thank you. Let you finish up.
Staff continued to reach out to the public in various ways in 2024, and this table documents how we engaged with the public. It also includes all the public engagement strategies cited within CAMPO's public participation plan. And that concludes my comments.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the group up here? I mean, it's something that we see from time to time, and some of these numbers are still fairly small, and the differences year to year are really tiny, like fractions of a minute. And I go, okay. But thank you very much. All righty. Next item, I guess we're on to Chris for your transportation manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair is the next meeting. Mr. Chair, apologies.
Madam's okay.
No, it's not.
You answered
Doesn't hurt.
everything.
Transportation Manager Report, Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. The draft RTP public comment period has closed. We received 44 comments from 17 different individuals, so we'll be working through and responding to those comments, and those will be presented at a future meeting of CAMPO when we adopt the plan. So we're working through those, making some adjustments, but I appreciate those who made comments, provided their feedback, who attended the public meetings in the 3 jurisdictions, and for those of you who came out as well, thanks for doing that. I think we got some good feedback through that process. Wanted to also note that, and many of you probably are aware of this, there was a press release that the Carson City is updating its email addresses and domains. So our email addresses are moving to @carsoncity.gov. So as you reach out to staff, just remember that. The website will be changing as well. It doesn't affect the CAMPO website. CarsonAreaMPO.com remains unaffected. Comments at CarsonAreaMPO.com is also unaffected. That will remain and forward to the appropriate emails in the future. There are a number of plans that we do need to update, and we'll be doing so administratively. The ADA Transition Plan, Title VI plans, other documents that have email addresses and contact information all need to be updated and reposted on the website. That will take us some time to go through all that and find all those. We're also unsure of how the links are going to work for all our documents and links within documents, so we'll work through that and get those updated over the next couple of months. So bear with us if something's not functioning, you're looking for it, we'll work through those link issues. We are also working with NDOT on updating an amendment to CAMPO's Unified Planning Work Program to fund the rest of fiscal year 26. This was discussed earlier this year, and NDOT has been working with them on the release of the federal fiscal year 26 funds. They are what we expected them to be, so we'll be working through that amendment to fund the rest of the fiscal year. What fiscal 27 and the rest of the future looks like is subject to a federal reauthorization, which is my next update. There is some progress being made at the federal level. Congress is still continuing to work, and perhaps Ms. Capular has additional details to provide. I think there are some concerns starting to arise related to the amount of funding, the level of funding, what's being funded. Seems to be a focus more on highways, state highways, interstates in particular, and less on other modes that would be available to metropolitan planning organizations or local jurisdictions. So that has us obviously concerned. How that funding gets trickled down from the state DOT to local agencies could be more of a challenge. We're not sure yet. So fingers crossed that they're still working through those ideas and differences to come forward. The last thing I wanted to note, and it's sort of a melancholy one, is tonight's last meeting for Commissioner Dodson. We wanted to just recognize and thank him for your time on the board, nearly 5 years. We have a little plaque for you we'll give after the meeting, but I just wanted to thank you, Jim, for serving and stepping up and volunteering and providing your feedback and input over the years. So I just wanted to say thank you and appreciate your efforts. And that concludes my monitoring report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jim, you can come back as a citizen. You can sit out there if you'd like. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Give us input. Got good advice. All right, I'll move on to item 6B. Rebecca, NDOT report. You had a board meeting the other day and there was a special session, and what else is new?
Yes, we have a lot going on. Thank you. One thing I want to mention is the Strategic Highway Safety Plan has been recommended for approval by the Nevada acts, and it's being prepared to be sent to our governor for signature and acceptance. Once we receive that approval, it will then be submitted as a package to the Federal Highway Administration. Well, I do want to mention that the development is in alignment with US 23 Code 148A 11A. And that's important because we had consultation via stakeholder meetings, surveys, and numerous conversations with all state and local stakeholders. And that includes CAMPO. I want to give a big shout out to Kelly Norman. Thank you. You've been very helpful and involved, and we appreciate the collaboration to you and all of CAMPO's team. So thank you for that, and your contribution to the workshops and the surveys. The plan is based on the USDOT's Safe Systems approach, which is hard for me to say tonight. It's going to be based on the elements of safer roads, safer speeds, safer people, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. If you are interested in a future presentation, we would be happy to have our Chief of Safety, Lacey Tisler, come. She's loving getting this word out and collaborating with people, so we can talk about that if that's something that you would like in the future. Speaking of safety, I want to remind folks that NDOT safety is our top priority. And we've discussed, as Kelly has mentioned, fatalities that have occurred in the state and here numerous times. This month is important because I want to target something that we see way too much of in December and in these holiday times where there's a lot of impaired driving. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reports that blood alcohol content as low as 0.02% can impair our abilities while we're behind the wheel. And across the state, impaired driving deaths increased from 134 in 2018 to 184 deaths in 2022. So they're going up. And when we mix alcohol with other drugs, we can have even more deadly results behind the wheel. So I want to remind all of us in the state and Carson area, drivers, to be safe this holiday season. And as we were just hearing in that report, we do see more bike and peds out. And even when you're walking or biking, impairment can judge your character, make judgment choices that are not favorable. There are also resources available through the zerofataliesnv.com. Again, that's zerofataliesnv.com website. You can follow the state's campaign on social media, and there are collaborations during special events and holidays where you can get Lyft or Uber rides and stuff like that, which is important to remember. As you mentioned, Chair, we did have a special session in November, so I have a brief update on that. Again, speaking of safety, which I'm happy to say was one of the hot topics, Assembly Bill 6 was passed during November's special session of the Nevada legislature. This enhanced law raises penalties for violations in school zones, and it increases local control over school zone design. Some specifics to that include, similar to the existing law regarding pedestrian safety zones, the law doubles penalty for certain driving infractions in active school zones and crossing zones. And drivers who commit traffic violations in these zones will receive double demerit points. The law also authorizes NDOT and local jurisdictions to further collaborate regarding the area, hours, and other aspects to school zones on state-maintained roadways. So we were happy to collaborate, work together with our Safe Routes to School program and your Safe Routes to School program and see what we can do and follow the new regulations that will be coming into effect. And the last item I have is, you may remember a few months ago I mentioned that we were inviting school children to participate in a pedestrian and bicycle art contest. Well, now it's time to do our aviation planning group announcements that they're doing a Nevada school children invitation for them to participate in a national aviation art contest. And we're looking for artwork that depicts how flights can save lives. So that might include everything from search and rescue to firefighting efforts. And they want the art to show how air sports can make people feel focused and connected in nature. So the winning art submissions will be entered into a national competition. Within the national winners, they will be submitted to a international contest, so it's a big domino effect. Submissions are due by January 16th, 2026, and students can get ready to do that over the holiday and have some great art activities they can do. Information's available by going on our website and selecting mobility and then the aviation tab, and that's at dot.nv.gov. And that concludes my report. So thank you, and I'm available for questions if you have any.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Rebecca and NDOT? They're a key partner in the whole program. And I think when I looked in the tip, there's projects coming every year on some of the main roads around Carson City, the whole Campo area, 50 and 395. So we'll see how things go. Okay, move on to our next item, 6C. Any other comments and news to share? I was going to make one comment, and it's kind of related to the TIP and STIP and planning, but I saw on the news that Washoe County got a federal lands access program grant that was announced this week, $29 million to rebuild the road to Burning Man. The county road, County Road 34. So I don't know if NDOT's involved in that or they're just dealing directly with Washoe County or RTC, but I think we probably won't be getting any more flap grants for a couple of years if they've got that much money. So, but we will see. And a lot of it depends on what reauthorization is going to bring. And at this point, I have no idea. We'll see. Every year is an election year. We'll see how it goes. All righty. Moving on to the next item. It's item 7, our second opportunity for general public comment. Do we have any folks in the audience that want to speak up at this point? And we do have an RTC meeting coming up right after this that you might be here for as well. So, okay, seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 5:06, and we will start RTC in
5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right, thank you very much.
Call the Regional Transportation Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte,
Here.
Commissioner Dodson,
Here.
Commissioner Maloney, Commissioner Novak.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you so much. Do I have any opening public comment for the Regional Transportation Commission? Okay, thank you so very much. We'll move on then to possible action on our minutes of November 12th. Does any member have any corrections, changes? Nothing? I'll accept a motion, please.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. We'll now move on to agenda item 5A. This is for action on a contract for Sierra Nevada construction for some projects. Casey, pretty normal what we have here. Is there anything odd or different in this solicitation that we need to know about?
Yes, so Casey Sylvester, Transportation and Traffic Engineer. So this contract is an award of two projects that advertise together, the District 2 Stewart Street Preservation Project and the District 2 Fairview Drive Preservation Project that are both part of projects that were approved in June of 2024 at the RTC for prioritization at that time. These projects came in over bid. We're seeing quite a bit of inflation at the moment, and so that's affecting our prices a little bit. We're going to cover the budget deficit associated with that, with those bids coming in. Over by using funds from the Gonai Rehabilitation Project, the Gonai budget will be replenished during budget augmentation this year. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? So we are able to squeak this out, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, we squeak these ones out. Okay. Is there any public comment? Seeing none? All right, I'll bring it up here for a motion then. Mr. Dotson.
I move to award the contract as presented and to authorize the Public Works Director to approve expenditure of the contingency if needed.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item 5B, which is some discussion and action regarding recommendations for our Safe Routes to School plan. Member Schutte, do you have a disclosure?
I do, thank you. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Mr. Martinovich, are you going to give us some highlights?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. This item is noted in the agenda title is to take the existing Safe Routes to School master plan and turn it into a Safe Routes to School action plan, which meets certain federal requirements for receiving safety dollars through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program, as well as through the HSIP Highway Safety Improvement Program funding sources. The plan itself is generally consistent with the previous master plan, and the update to this plan was funded with Safe Streets and Roads for All grant funding from the Federal Highway Administration. And we had assistance from Alta Planning and Design in updating this document. The plan itself incorporates maintains the schools that were in the current master plan, the elementary schools and the 2 middle schools, but all now also includes the 2 high schools, Carson High School and the Silver campus of the high school, as well as the Stewart Head Start School in the Washoe, in the Stewart community of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California. And I do want to note that in the staff report, I believe I wrote Pioneer High School, and that was a previous that's been renamed to the Silver campus. And so we did cull through the plan to make sure it's consistent, and it's only in the staff report where it's referenced as Pioneer. So apologize for that typo, probably just a copy and paste thing from a previous staff report on this topic. The plan outlines a number of programmatic projects as well as recommended infrastructure projects across multiple tiers. The programmatic projects are listed on packet page 90 in the document. These are programs that serve sort of as a workflow or a guide as to how we are going to prioritize efforts through the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program. As a point of reference, in our previous master plan, we had a number of these programmatic projects, and I think we achieved 13, and we're making progress on 6 more from the previous plan. So our Safe Routes to School, they do the education, they do the enforcement, they do the outreach, they do all those components that aren't necessarily building or infrastructure components to help make our schools safer. And so those are listed there in that section of programmatic projects. Other components of this plan are the infrastructure projects, and those are listed as Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 projects are those, as we call them, quick win projects, similar to the current plan, where they're relatively small in scope and stature. They have signing, striping, maybe some curb upgrades, things like that, something that we can knock out pretty easily, either as part of a larger project or even with our own internal forces. Street operations crews can adjust signs or put up new signs, painting, and things like that. Tier 2 projects are a little more involved. They're a little bit higher dollar amount, higher cost. They involve connecting different missing elements between areas, more focused on schools. And these projects we look at when we incorporate our pavement management plan. What elements can we incorporate with a larger project? Or another alternative could be seeking additional federal funding to do these elements. And then the third set of projects is, as titled, our aspirational projects. These are larger scale, more expensive projects. These are ones that, if we were to target a specific grant, these are some of those projects that are pretty much going to be primarily grant funded and not ones we're looking to fund through our existing roadway type funding or other sources like that. But as an example too, we've been successful in achieving one of our aspirational projects from the current master plan, and that's the vulnerable user project, where we received a congressional designated spending to do multiple sidewalk upgrades and even some pavement preservation as part of that project. And that was directly a result of this plan and the aspirational projects outlined in it. So that's how we kind of use those 3 levels of projects, the Tier 1, the Tier 2, and the Tier 3, in terms of delivering them over time. Projects themselves are included in our regional transportation plan. They're more general, and as they get more defined over time, or a project is identified for funding and can move forward, we'll amend the transportation improvement program to include project specifics at that time. I do want to note that, as I mentioned a few times, the completed projects, I mentioned the programmatic ones, the aspirational projects, but of all of our infrastructure projects, I think we've completed or a portion or all of 8 projects, and we have 3 others that are pending, construction or nearly completed, and another several in program state where they've been programmed to a project, they're in an early state of design or identified to go into a project. And so this plan really just updates that and continues the progress that we're making and making sure that we're still eligible to receive federal safety funds by turning this into an action plan that meets all those requirements. That's really what I wanted to highlight. The last thing I'll note that is this project was really led by Scott Bohemir, who retired this past November. So I just wanted to publicly thank him and again congratulate him for his retirement. So that's why I am presenting it today and not him. But we're hopeful that we'll have a new Safe Routes to School coordinator here in the next month or so, and we can continue the momentum that he started. Madam Chair, thank you.
Great. So I just have a question on, it's either page 83 of the report or packet page 160. coming up with a new potential program that we've listed for walk, ride, punch card program, kind of an innovative, particular approach. But I want to caution a portion that's written in here that talks about scanning a QR code to allow students to track the progress on their phones. And I want to make sure that anything we do within a transportation system doesn't, on one hand, do something that we don't want people to do, which is to use their cell phones while they're driving. And I think many of the schools also don't allow them to use their cell phones at school. So it's just a cautionary note that I think we're almost counterintuitive to ourselves, right? That we're really pushing the messaging of not, and I don't even care if it's on your bicycle, do not be using your cell phone while on your bicycle. I think it's a bad messaging. So I just want to note that before we really move down that path, to make sure we're limiting it appropriately, to not have them pull out their cell phones while biking. So that's just a note on that for discussion. And then I would like to understand on packet page 162, or that's so light, page 85 of the report, you've got a potential programmatic increase on crossing guard support. And when I read through that, I'm trying to get a clearer understanding. Are we saying we do not currently have robust training for crossing guards? Is that we need a consistent training? Who's doing the training? I'm trying to understand that issue on crossing guards.
Well, I can say that, we as Safe Routes to School, or the RTC, don't have crossing guards under our jurisdiction. We don't offer training to them through our program. What we do provide crossing guards is the jackets, reflective gear, the signs. We provide them with those features for them to be safer when they're out guarding our streets and helping people cross the streets. I know that Scott had some conversations with the school district regarding their program and how they train crossing guards. And I don't know where those conversations left off. That's one area that we can certainly engage with them again as to what are they doing versus what we can do through the Safe Routes program. But I think at this point, that's the best I can answer at this moment.
Well, and I'd like to recommend that we really, to the whatever appropriate level there is, that we work with the traffic unit in the sheriff's office, and have a true understanding. I think it's actually something great that we're trying to address. I know I live right at this and see the crossing guard on a Monday through Friday basis when they're in school, and I will say that it's not consistent across the school zones that I travel. And so I always thought that crossing guards are for the children, not to stop the traffic for vehicles. And so I think having the traffic officers, the school, Safe Routes, everybody together, having consistent training. And that way, again, it kind of goes with having our zones all consistently marked that we've been working on for the last few years. It will help the public have a clean understanding and clear understanding of what you're supposed to do. So love that you're going to expand that, but if you can, please add in discussions for best practices. I guess that's what I'm looking for crossing guards with the sheriff's department. So those are just some of the things I saw. Anybody else? Ms. Schutte?
This was a wonderful report. Thank you. And something that I kind of noticed throughout the recommendations is I would love to, as we move forward with this, kind of think in terms of empowerment. For example, on page 90, the Safe Route to School maps, developing school-specific route maps that would give families clear guidance on the safest ways to walk and bike to school. Absolutely, guidance is important. It encourages students to choose safer routes, but it also empowers others to try riding and biking, folks who might normally not think of that as an option. And so I think that's something to consider. The same with page 91 on the back to school safety assemblies. Love that. In addition to setting the norms for safe travel, I think it creates an opportunity for safe travel. We're encouraging interest, increase that interest, and create that opportunity. The punch cards, I love that, and I agree 100%. Walking, riding, you don't want kiddos on their phones because then they're not paying attention to vehicles around them. I see this punch card as also incentivizing parents. How are you doing? What's it looking like? And that's great because without parental support, fewer kiddos will be walking and riding. So I love that. And then on page 95, on the annual parent survey, I would also ask for parent input regarding what would help you as a parent feel more comfortable having your child walk or ride to school, and let that help us address any areas that we haven't thought about, or that perhaps while we think that this mitigation is helpful, perhaps from a parent's perspective, is like, no, that's scary because. And then finally on page 97, back to that parent barrier reporting, that first sentence, establish a parent barrier reporting system to create a simple, consistent way for families to raise safety concerns and increase comfort level. Let's keep getting back to what's going to help folks feel comfortable so that they will actually bike and ride. So those are my comments.
Mr. Dotson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The engineer and me love the way this report is done. Very detailed recommendations, methodologies for prioritization, which I think are all good. I guess I'd make a comment about the funding of all these projects, the timing of the project, and what I'm trying to say is that I worry that all good ideas, all necessary needs, but take, for example, we're doing a local road project, and it's got a number of these items on that local road. And, we've heard over and over again the priorities in the pavement. And if we start folding some of these things in and trying to pay for that with that local road funding, I think that, that's an area of concern. The other one would be, do some of these recommendations, do they need to be looked at from another point of view or another discipline? And I noted a couple of the ones like the curb extensions. Seems to me like there would be instances where those curb extensions might have, ramifications of, like, say, a bike path or drainage in particular, how you tie that in. And then pretty soon a cost that looks pretty minimal, is expanded to do that and may conflict with another area of concern. So again, I want to say that it's a really good report, a lot of good ideas, but I don't know that there's a truly dedicated funding source to accomplish, what we're looking at here. And just keep that in mind, as we move forward to incorporate these things.
I think you're on to something that overall, it's as feasible. I think that we all recognize that it's as feasible, so that if we're somewhere on a particular, we're doing something on Mountain Street and you've got 3 school zones in there or something, and they look at a project, they, like you said, be looking here too to say, oh, what do we have that we need to do? And does it make cost effective sense to fold something in that was in this plan? But I agree, we don't have dollars specific dedicated to these projects, which, as you notice, or I did even too, I'm like, ooh, no dollars, a single dollar sign, a double dollar sign, a triple dollar sign, but I agree with you that everything is as feasible is the overarchingness to this report, but at least it gives us something, if we're there, that it makes us look at it. Right? And I think that's always important too, that we don't miss the step of a review and something that says, whoa, wait, we got a safe route issue on that particular road while we're there. So I think it keeps it there, right? That we look at it in context and in consistency of that. But Miss Maloney, I'll come to you. Greg?
I like the new format. You know, when the Safe Routes to School Master Plan was created with the intent of being really implementable, right? And I love the change in format. I think it just takes it to the next step. So really good job. I'm going to vote to support this plan and approve it. I will make the comment that I do continue to think that it's odd that the Carson Montessori elementary school is missing. It's not a private school. It's a public open enrollment school sponsored by the Carson City School District. And I think at some point, some public explanation on why we're excluding it would be important.
Why are we excluding it? Go ahead and put it on the record. It's like, go
There,
ahead.
there is no particular reason other than to say that it's in a challenging spot right now, and they've been looking at moving, and so there's some challenges with that, but there's no other reason you're right, it should be in here, and we just didn't include it this time around. It can be added with additional funding to update the plan, yes.
I think you have 2 issues and they're both valid. So they also just did a contract with the Boys and Girls Club and moved or have an expansion there, and they're looking to see if they can even do more. So I think on the next update, wherever they are, they should be included in the.
We can do that. The other thing I'll note that, other private schools aren't in here either, and so I just wanted to note charter private schools, St. Teresa's Elementary School is not in here. So Carson Montessori is not the only one, and I know you all know that. So, but to your point, it's the only one funded with the school district.
Yeah, I think my understanding is the Safe Routes money is not eligible for use on private schools.
Right.
But Carson Montessori is a public school.
Right, it's chartered. So anyway, I think that the next time we look for updates, we could add Montessori. Okay, Greg?
Yeah, I think whoever the next Safe Routes to School coordinator is going to be has to read this several times
It'll be a good Bible for
and then
them.
sort through it because there's quite a bit. I was thinking it's more than comprehensive, right? So sorting through it and figuring out what needs to be done just from the Safe Routes portion is a full-time job. But then we have an ADA transition plan, we have complete streets, we have all sorts of projects, planning commissions, always approving developments, and it needs to be considered at all those levels. And again, money is definitely an object, and if we can do it, we will. A couple of my comments, I guess we added the high school this go-around, and when I looked at all the safety data, there's really not that much of a safety problem at the schools, which is good. There's crashes nearby. And the other thing that comes to mind, wearing my old safety hat, schools are open half the time, right? So half the year, there's crashes every day, but schools are only, in session roughly half the time. So, you can't hang your hat on too much of that safety data, but luckily it's small and we'll definitely not ignore it. The other question is the high school, remembering years ago, there's younger drivers there. And I don't know if we've got any safety data that shows that those folks are involved in any of the crashes on Salaman or something else nearby. But I would like to, focus on those younger drivers if there is something we can do in safe routes to school. You'll get to it sooner or later. You'll be you'll be teaching somebody how to drive.
She's like,
It was scary,
"What?
trust me.
Teenagers coming my way?"
It was
Yeah.
So with that, I say, it's an excellent report and, it's a good reference. And I think, definitely want to move ahead on it, but we have other competing interests, but I think it's a really good report.
So, part for discussion today, we did have a few comments, and I'll take some public comment in a minute to see if there's anything else in the plan that anyone else saw. Whether it's just you add a note of discussion, like on the cell phone, because I know this is a completed report and things of that nature, but I feel pretty strongly about not having something saying we're recommending cell phones or texting, or just adding a note that you'll look at something. I don't know. Is there enough information on what we just did for you to make the small changes?
Yes,
Okay.
good
I just
feedback,
wanna make
thank
sure.
you.
Okay. Is there any public comment for anything else that any of you see in the report? No? Okay. They all come running up, didn't they? All right, so then I think our motion can be more is approving the plan as discussed on the record, so that the few comments can be added in. So if somebody wants to make a motion,
I will do.
Greg?
Yep. I move to approve the plan as discussed today.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. I'll let the record reflect it was unanimous. Great job on that. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5C. This is discussion and possible action on the acceptance of the Jump Around Carson fiscal year 24 and 25 monitoring report and some potential recommendations for that. Ms. Shooty, a disclosure, please.
Do I need?
Oh, I had it listed. as
Well, I have it listed as well. Okay.
Oh.
There were two people listed, so I had it just in case on this.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. He will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Who's going to start it off? Are you Marcus? Okay, take us through.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Marcus Myers, Transit Coordinator. This item will review the annual JAC monitoring report, as well as the Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan in a past, present, and future format. Beginning with Part 1, we'll look at the past and discuss JAC's monitoring report, which highlights fiscal years 2024 and 2025 and is included as Exhibit 2. Before we jump into the data and graphs, and since we're talking about the past, I wanted to include a handful of photos from the last 20 years that JAC has been operating in Carson City. So these graphs display ridership trends for JAC's fixed route service from fiscal year 2023 through 2025. You'll notice that ridership experienced a steep drop midway through fiscal year 2023, which is attributed to the reimplementation of paid fares. Fiscal year 2024 to 2025, ridership remained relatively flat, losing 1,141 trips, which equates to around 5 trips per day over the course of the year. Jack Assist, on the other hand, continues to show steady growth in ridership year over year and is invaluable to the many who use it to access their medically needed treatments. From fiscal year 2024 to 2025, ridership increased by 616 trips, equating to roughly 3 additional trips per day. When we combine the two modes and look back to the early days of COVID-19 and social distancing, you can see exactly how ridership was affected by the pandemic. In March of 2021, Jack began running fare free, which helped flatten the negative ridership curve and even increased ridership in fiscal years 2022 and 2023. December of 2023 marked the end of fare free travel on the Jack Transit system, which had a negative impact on ridership. I think this graph shows us not just how Jack Transit was affected by COVID-19, but also may detail a new baseline ridership in a post-COVID environment. Total ridership from fiscal year 2024 to 2025 fell by just 525 trips, and while many factors play into ridership, likely the biggest contributor was the decrease was the drop in vehicle revenue hours. So in fiscal year 2025, Jack ran 1,962 less revenue hours than in fiscal year 2024 across both modes. Using the identified number of passengers per revenue vehicle, we find that those hours could have equated to 12,516 additional trips across both modes. The Jack Transit system continues to be efficient and effective and outperforms national averages in operating costs per vehicle revenue hour and vehicle revenue miles. Additionally, improved coordination with MTM, who is the state's non-emergency medical transportation provider, has led to a large increase in Medicaid reimbursed trips. In fiscal year 2025, Jack spent $2.3 million in total operating costs and $279,000 on capital, compared to fiscal year 2024, with roughly $2.1 million being expended on operating and $191,000 on capital. Jack currently has 3 years of unexecuted 5307 grant apportionments from fiscal years 2023, 2024, and 2025, as well as fiscal year 2025 5339 and 5310 grant apportionments, which are pending FTA review after being submitted last week. While it's not pictured on this slide, it is worth noting that Medicaid reimbursements increased by $10,270 and advertising revenue increased by $8,699, which helps lessen the local match burden that falls on the city. Moving on to part 2, we'll talk about present conditions and current efforts in the Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan. National trends show an increase in personal vehicle ownership, more employers offering work from home options, and changes to traditional commuting patterns, which have shifted to more midday and Saturday public transit use. Additionally, expiring CARES Act funding, which was provided as a match-free lump sum grant, is now causing budget shortfalls for many agencies across the country at a time when prices continue to raise for capital and operating needs. Furthermore, the aging population continues increasing as evidenced by the network monitoring report. To date, outreach efforts have included a combined RTP and CHSP survey, a Jack driver survey, individual agency and community partner interviews and workshops, as well as participation at the RTP public meetings in Carson City and Lyon County. Pictured on this slide to the right is the current Jack route map. Highlighting some responses to the transit-related questions from the joint RTP and CHSP survey, 61% of respondents claim to have never used public transportation, yet 30% want to use transit more than they currently do, and 24% state they were unable to travel because they did not have access to transportation. Additional factors preventing people from taking trips in the past year could largely be filled by the transit network. More than half of respondents stated they either can't drive, don't have a car, can't afford gas, parking, insurance, or other costs associated with owning a car. They don't have anyone to take them where they need to go, or they're unfamiliar with transportation options. The want and need for public transit is further detailed in the graph to the far right. When asked to rank potential priorities for the region's transportation system over the next 25 years, public transit was listed as the third highest priority, falling just shy of roadway safety and surprisingly outranking road condition and resiliency of infrastructure, as well as other categories like landscaping, traffic congestion, and so on. It should be noted that these priority rankings include the entire CAMPO area, which extends outside of Carson City, and they are not meant to compete with each other. Rather, they go hand in hand, working together to improve the entire transportation network in Carson City for the benefit of the community. Additional survey responses reflect circumstances in which people prefer not to drive, the reasons people don't use public transit, and how people feel public transit in the CAMPO region is performing when it comes to information sharing, ease and frequency of transit, and an individual's access to the transit system. These responses, along with those on the previous slides, are given strong consideration when deciding how to move forward with public transit in the region. Staff met individually with agencies and community partners in the area to gain further input from providers about the transit network. We're very grateful for those agencies and individuals who took the time out to meet and discuss this with us. Following these individual meetings, group workshops were held to begin determining themes, goals, and strategies for the short-term transit plan and coordinated human services plan, which will further be discussed in part 3 of this presentation. Common themes from the joint survey include Jack's limited hours and coverage area, long headways, inadequate access to information, and the overall need for improvements to the transit system. Themes from community partner interviews and workshops detailed the need for better connections for people living outside of the urban area, improved access to information and knowledge of how to use the transit system, more bus stop amenities such as shelters, benches, and lighting, and improved regional coordination and connections. Jack drivers also participated in a survey giving input that bus stop improvements, extended weekend hours, and access to new locations should be considered with this plan's update. Part 3, the future. This section discussed the Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan. The Coordinated Human Services Plan is a requirement for recipients of Section 5310 funding and is a locally developed strategy aimed at improving transportation for at-risk populations, such as seniors, people with disabilities, and individuals with low incomes. It identifies the needs of the target population and creates a plan to address those identified needs. The transit development portion of this plan includes a short-term transit plan, which has a 5-year outlook, as well as a long-term transit vision. Staff is interested in receiving feedback and direction from the board as we work toward finalizing the goals, strategies, and future of the Jack Transit System. So for the Coordinated Human Services Plan. A few things to highlight in regard to roles and responsibilities. As most of us probably know, Jack has 2 governing bodies, the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, which provides funding for the transit system, while the Regional Transportation Commission operates it. Implementation of this plan will be accomplished through a collective working group or steering committee made up of transportation, human services, and institutional professionals, as well as other partner agencies and organizations. Action items may require support from multiple lead agencies and will not entirely fall on Jack. And there are no assigned funding commitments in the Coordinated Human Services Plan. Full implementation could take years to accomplish. Using the feedback received from the previously discussed survey results, individual agency interviews and workshops, the following themes were developed: improved service and regional connectivity to target populations, universal access and infrastructure enhancements, flexible and specialized transportation services, affordability, equal access and language access, service quality, and workforce sustainability, rider awareness, information and education, and coordination and innovation. Specific goals and strategies were then developed for each theme. These goals and strategies can be found in Exhibit 3 and will be discussed more throughout this presentation. Draft strategies were prioritized during a steering committee workshop and were assigned a ranking of high, medium, or low priority, as well as an estimated implementation timeline of short, mid, or long term. The following priority rankings come directly from the steering committee workshop. Some short-term priorities include establishing interlocal agreements for cost sharing, development of a plan for amenity improvements, and expanded driver customer service and disability training. Some midterm priorities are analyzing the demand for evening and weekday service and installing real-time information displays, while some long-term priorities are to coordinate with employers and schools to align service, develop cross-county connector services, and improve pedestrian and bicycle access to stops. The short-term transit plan and long-term vision. This is an assessment of the transit system within the area it operates and consists of a service plan, which identifies service levels, route network, types of service, and hours and days of service, as well as a financial plan, which identifies current and future financial needs. The plan and long-term vision meet federal requirements of agencies receiving FTA funds. They're a key document used to justify requests for discretionary funding, and they help guide decision-making and support long-term viability of the system. Some roles and responsibilities for the short-term transit plan and long-term vision are listed on the screen, but generally include remaining cost neutral and incorporate potential trade-offs to keep funding commitments. The short-term transit plan proposes transit-specific strategies that can be implemented within project budget over the next 5 years. Recommendations are aligned with the goals set out in the RTP and include service development, organizational effectiveness, marketing and public awareness, and agency coordination. In the next several slides, I'll review recommendations and tactics for each identified strategy, along with a visual representation detailing the anticipated implementation timeline. Recommendations for service development could include reallocating fixed route service to areas that meet demand, providing access to requested locations such as the Eagle Medical Center, Topsy Lane, and the Jack Admin Building, pilot and on-demand service in low-density, high-needs areas, and ensure inter-city connections are appropriately timed with local services. Additional service development recommendations include concentrating services to meet midday ridership peaks, adjusting routes to be more direct and less redundant or overlapping, placing stops on both sides of two-way streets, updating time points to better serve the public while reducing stress on drivers, and adjusting schedules to better reflect travel times. With regard to the route network, there are a few scenarios and service level options that should be considered. Scenario 1 is cost neutral and would largely keep the route network as is, with minor adjustments. Scenario 2 is to optimize the route network while remaining cost neutral. Scenario 3 would reduce costs by continuing with the current route network but cutting out Route 2B. And Scenario 4 would optimize the fixed route network while adding an on-demand pilot project. This scenario is not expected to reduce costs, and cost estimates would be dependent on policies that would need to be developed. Additional options have been developed for the transit system service levels. Option A would maintain the current level of service and annual operating hours, while options B, C, and D could be considered to meet budget projections by reducing, repurposing, or eliminating service. However, it needs to be stressed that any reduction in service, such as those in options B, C, or D, may not improve ridership. And the estimated annual savings column is based on service hour reductions. Tactics for organizational effectiveness include setting target guidelines for key performance indicator reporting from the contract operator, establish policy guidelines to detail mitigations for unmet service targets, review and coordinate with peer agencies on their established policies, and the development of policies associated with operating an on-demand service. Tactics for marketing and public awareness include having a centralized information hub with a real-time user interface and an easy-to-use website. Having Jack staff and a bus present at community events to allow people to explore and ask questions, and to provide better access to a paratransit certification representative. Tactics for financial management include connecting with human services transportation providers, public and private partnerships, and tribal partners, working towards having 1 month operating float in the budget, aiming to replace revenue vehicles at 100% spare ratio, and promoting the procurement of vehicles, equipment, and parts that are generic, readily available, or easily interchangeable. With everything we've discussed in mind, an alternative route map was created, which would provide a number of benefits. This route map is not a formal recommendation, as required public input has not yet been received. Some benefits include more direct bidirectional service, access to key destinations people are currently visiting, as well as new locations people would like to have access to. This route network would allow Jack to better compete with regular automobiles by providing 30-minute service windows from North Carson Street between the downtown transfer center and WNC, as well as from Highway 50 between North Solomon Road and Airport Road. Next steps include open discussion, input from the RTC, recommendations for what should be included as part of the RTP, development of a draft coordinated human services plan and short-term transit plan, which would be presented to the public and CAMPO board, and a finalized plan would be presented to the RTC in early 2026. I'd like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Dan and his team at Parametrics, who are the consultants for the Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan. They've been great to work with, and I look forward to getting things wrapped up here in the coming months. And with that, I'll give it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So why don't we just start with general thoughts on transit, and I'll just throw out one that it's difficult, and I certainly serve on another transit board dealing with Tahoe Transportation District, and all the same factors really come into play, and one starts with money, right? So you always have potential demand for more bus stops or routes and other longer hours, adding weekends. But I would say for me, one of the most or the highest thing that seems to come to mind is the route time or the headway time, whatever you want to technically call it. So that the bus is most effective when it's reliable and it's taking people to the full route that they want to go, right? And so that's what would drive ridership, is that I can trust the bus is going to be there for me to get to work Monday through Friday or get to my doctor's appointments or whatever. So I think anything we can do to concentrate on headway time is something if our motivation is to get more people onto the bus, right? How do we attract more people to ride the bus? Because I can't see, and I'm only talking from my other hat too, I can't see putting more money into transit if I don't get a like increase of getting people off the road, right? So I don't want to pour more money into transit if I don't get a like rate of return. So those are things that are important to me. Is I have the goal to get the people off the roads, and which comes first? Do you fund extended routes that makes me do more service for Jack Assist? Because you notice that's really going up when I look at, and that's our most expensive. And so when I look to say, am I going to extend out a route? Well, that's going to make the required 3/4 mile Jack Assist even more expensive. And so I think we have to coordinate this to the best of our ability, but I also know that we're struggling in all of our, what we just got done with, right? Safe routes to school. How do I fill the potholes? How do I do and it all comes together in an overall plan. And I think it's very difficult because each time we're voting on a plan, I feel like I'm wearing that hat. Oh, I'm wearing the Jack hat right now, right? And so this looks good for Jack, but I'm like, wait a minute. I have to wear the safe routes to school hat, and I have to wear the hat of filling the potholes. And the money's all coming. Sometimes we can use different federal funding sources to help us, but the match portions or things like that, that's our general fund or my gas taxes. And how do I make these all fit together? So I think it's difficult. I think each plan can stand, but they don't stand together. That's where it gets difficult for me, is to go, if I make this decision over here, I just took, pretend, 100,000 out of this pot of money, and I don't mind if you can show me the rate of return I'm going to get for making the decision. And I think that's the hardest thing in this when you have recommendations. I don't get the chorus. What am I getting if I do that? What's my rate of return? So those are the difficult parts for me. Ms. Maloney.
Thank you. I think those are really good comments. Well taken. I had a question going back to packet page 198, that table that was on one of your earlier slides with all the statistics. Can you remind me, did we in 2025 change fixed route service operations from 2024? Did we cut service?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Can you help us understand the reduction of revenue hours from 2024 to 2025? We operated 1,157 less revenue hours, which translates to 6 hours per route per week less than 2024. I suspect that was due to how this was recorded and accounted rather than some sort of service disruption, but do you recall kind of how that number changed?
So the largest differences that I've identified were a difference in operating days. So there were 2 less days in 2025 than fiscal year than 2024. We did increase efficiencies with paratransit's hours. Not running as many hours if it wasn't needed, and then arguably the biggest shortage of those hours would be Route 2B being closed due to staffing issues, call-ins, different things like that.
So specifically, the fixed route shouldn't have been impacted by the paratransit cuts that we made to make sure we stayed within our operating contract. But the metrics for vehicle revenue hours, so the definition of those is scheduled time, including layovers. So we shouldn't see significant changes year to year. Those should be the time that the bus gets to the plaza transfer station all the way through when they do their last drop off at the end of the day. So my request to staff is just make sure you're accounting for those the same, because year to year, if we don't change a schedule, they really should be the same unless there's like a significant weather event for like a week, or if there's maintenance issues on the buses that are significantly impacting our ability to provide service. So that's my question, is if there was something significant like that, because 1,100 hours is a lot of hours. That's 100 hours a month.
And Commissioner Maloney, I'll add to what Marcus said. Part of those reductions are a result of services that were not provided. As Marcus said, 2B had several days and several periods of days where it didn't operate as a result of driver issues or bus issues, as you mentioned. So we did experience less route operating hours in fiscal year 25.
Okay. Is there anything that this board could do to help with that? Or I guess that's new information to me, so I just want to make sure that you're getting the support you need from this board.
Well, I know Marcus has been working with our transit operator, First Transit, to look at ways to make sure we have backup drivers when those call-ins happen, when people call in sick, whatever the reason is. And I think so far this year, Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, we've seen much more stable drivers. The routes have been much better at operating the last few months than they were, this time last year, which is when most of this was recorded. And I know that's not directly answering your question. Are there elements that this board can do? I would say, having feedback as to priorities like we're talking about today, the headway comment about looking at headways, that's helping us guide what is the priority, what should we be focusing on, what are the key elements that we need to focus if, are we going to provide service here? Are we going to provide service these other days? What are elements that we should, as the operators, day-to-day operators, be focusing on? If we have to make a change, if we have to make an adjustment, where should we adjust first? That would be beneficial to get from all of you.
Okay. So I guess my comment is the first thing I would focus on is the missing 8% of revenue hours, because that's a significant chunk. And presumably we didn't get a savings in the operating contract, right? Okay, I'll stop on that. I have two other questions, Madam Chair. One, I did have a public comment on the intercity bus, and since that was in your slide, I did say I would pass it on. There was a request from a member of the public that does take the intercity bus from Carson up to Reno and back, and he reported taking it in the morning, but there's a significant chunk in the afternoon where you have to wait in Reno before the bus comes back, and it comes back in the late afternoon. I know we don't have a lot of control over that, but the comment was, sounds like there's kind of a cohort of folks that take it, and if there's a possibility to make an earlier return trip in the early afternoon, that was the comment. And then the last comment I would make is the slide on the 100% spare ratio. Basically, if I'm understanding correctly, is staff suggesting that we have, or maybe you can explain what that means, and just so we know what we're recommending in a policy there. Does that mean there's
Chris,
double
can
the
you answer
buses, right? We have 100% of what we need spare.
That's my understanding of it, yes.
That's, in my opinion, that's really high, and so I don't know that I'd be supportive of a ratio that high.
That's fair.
Thank you.
I
Too
won't.
much capital.
I hear you, and I won't disagree. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Greg?
I've got a couple of questions or comments.
Sure.
I think it's kind of in here, but I think this group has said if you want to expand into Lyon or Douglas, those counties have to pay,
It is in here.
right? Just make that clear. And then also that we do not use all our FTA money, right? So it's still, if those counties don't want to use it and we're spending it as efficiently as we can, I would like to still see in reauthorization that gets transferred to highways, if you can change the law on that. Because you can spend highway money on transit, but right now you
Not
can't.
vice versa.
But I think what the staff has been trying to do is use some of that FTA money for bus stop improvements, sidewalks and other things that are similar to that. So if we can't spend it on actual service, can we get other infrastructure work that might help us out? And I guess on the overall route changes, I like that you've got that potential, 4 routes rather than the 3. And I guess the question is, can you stay within your 1-hour turnaround time for all these routes? Because I think that's the critical thing. If we want more people to ride the bus, well, it comes by here at 10 after every hour, that type of thing. So.
Yeah, and to speak to that, all of these would remain within the 1-hour headway. And this would essentially repurpose 2B. So we wouldn't be increasing the number of routes that we have. It would remain at 4.
And I guess the other thing that's hidden in here of we want to get more people to ride the bus, but the earlier report said people don't know how to ride the bus. So can we do some outreach? Or my suggestion to Chris was, I don't know anything about it, but high school kids and TikTok and everything else, this is how you ride the bus. This is the Jack version. I think there's enough talent out there to say, it's pretty simple. I grew up in New York City riding a bus and a subway, and you just do it. But, folks here don't know, so let's figure out a way, especially the senior citizen bunch, right? I'm looking for a mirror too. But
I think, Greg, I'll be honest, I don't ride the bus. I don't ride the bus, right? So I look at things that, well, why don't I ride the bus? And it's like, I'm not gonna walk to a stop. I'm not gonna be inconvenienced. I want my car, and when I'm ready to go, I wanna go to the next place within 10 minutes. I mean, I think we're still a car-centric community, and so that's why I worry when I look at some of these, and what I mean on the fiscal side of the cliff is to where am I going to put the city resources? And so it's really, really difficult if I see a bus and somebody says, okay, Lori, we need another 100,000 to go into Jack to support the routes. I go, wow, I could put that 100,000 would do one streets, won't do a lot. It'll do one streets potholes. So that impacts 250 residents that live on that street versus, and I guess that's what's missing for me is I'm not seeing, can you tell me what the most used actual route is with the most drivers on it? I mean, you should have drivers that say, I always have at least 40 passengers at, I don't know, 7 a.m. on this route. I mean, what's our just biggest use of the system?
You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would say the current Route 3 serving the south end of town likely has the largest amount of ridership. Keeping in mind that Route 2A and 2B generally run opposite each other. If you combine those two together, which doesn't truly answer your question, but those
I'm
would
looking
be.
for the time of day. I want to know when I can go by a bus and see it full. Doesn't matter if it's 7 a.m., is it 9 a.m., is it 2 p.m.? When is the bus the most full? When are the people using it? And you can get back to
I
me
would
if
have
you
to
don't
get
have
back to
the
you on that.
answers in fairness, right? Because I truly want to understand the system and the decisions that we're then making. Am I enhancing that? Or again, can I take a route that only has a bus at, 3 people that are taking it versus can I enhance one that there's only 3 seats left and what decision we're going to do if we impact this route change? I'm going to fill the buses up more is what I hope, right?
Absolutely.
Or on more of the times, more of the day, we'll see more people on it. So I guess I'm asking you to give me a little more help to understand even the recommendation as to the why. Why do you think this route would be better?
I can do that.
Madam Chair, if I may, I also want to make sure, that this map that's on the board here isn't a formal recommendation as to what we're going to propose or not propose, right? We don't have to change the routes at all. We've identified a number of things. We've heard many public comments over the years as to areas we should go or people would like us to go. So, I mean, I think there's a number of elements here that staff is looking for to help us progress this plan forward. Talking about these routes in particular would be helpful if there's things you like or don't like. If there are other elements in any of the other recommendations that you don't like or do like that we could take and run with. If there are recommendations in here that are like, yeah, that's a non-starter for us. I think those are elements we want to try to glean out of this before we put them into a plan for, CAMPO to review, the public to review, and ultimately this board to approve a formal plan in the future. So I mean, the conversation's been helpful. I'm not saying it hasn't been. I just wanted to make sure we're all thinking of that in a long range concept here, so that we can progress these ones that we like, and stop the ones we don't like in terms of where our focus areas are for transit.
So I know for me, we've had requests to extend for stops. Let's see, Dee Dee has always wanted us to expand the stops and then more, maybe up to other medical things up the Micah Drive area, those things. I don't want to do those unless they're corresponding other jurisdictions that would cause me to do the required paratransit within 3/4 of a mile or even fixed route without the other local governments doing an agreement with us to help pay for it. So that's for me. I mean, I want to do service for people and their needs, but I have to have a funding source to make that happen. And so I'll put that one on the record then in this planning document, that they have to step up and help. They can't just keep thinking Carson City's going to provide all the match to buy buses and to do operating. So for me, I would link those two together, that says if they will do an interlocal agreement with us, we will consider expanding bus stops. If that works. You guys have some more ideas? Ms. Schutte?
In addition to getting cars off the road, I think it's also really an important role of Jack is getting people where they need to go who otherwise couldn't get there. And so that just makes me think of what's the impact of not getting to work? What's the impact of not getting to your medical appointment, to not getting to the grocery store? And so there's a cost to the community for folks who cannot get to work. And I think in this conversation, or I feel strongly in this conversation, that it's important that we keep that in mind. In terms of building ridership, in addition to the reliable and the convenient, it also needs to be timely, that effective use of time. So it is worth someone's time to take the bus because the scheduling works. So I really like the idea of the 30-minute turnaround, if that's at all possible. You know, I met with a gal, a little senior who lives off of Dory, and I met her at the senior center, and she takes the bus to the senior center, and she eats lunch there, and that is
Social.
not only social, but that's food and interaction and getting out, and so I think that that's such an important part of this conversation.
Ms. Maloney?
Several years ago, we had a discussion about the Menlo kind of airport road, that yellow circle. And one of the reasons we couldn't move it was because back in 2016, 2015, we used FTA funds to help improve a sidewalk for those bus stops. And FTA, when you spend the money on those sidewalks, there's a useful life. And we had to continue using that asset, which we wanted to, and it was great. My question is that still a reason why we are proposing that circle? Or is it because that's a high use circle? And if that sidewalk had exceeded its useful life, would that be some reason why we would consider extending maybe on an eastbound down 50 to include Class E seconds and then maybe cut back in on Desatoya? Do you have any thoughts on that? It's a little nuanced, sorry.
That's okay.
So-
I can't speak to the useful life of the sidewalks. So I'm honestly not sure if that's the reason we've made that loop. The loop on the east side in Orange, is that what you're, there's a lot of ridership in the Woodside area. And so with this route map, we tried to make sure that we kept all of the high ridership areas, of course. And so that is a big area with good ridership that we didn't want to lose.
I'll also add to Marcus's comment about, Highway 50, that there are some definite challenges with running a service on Highway 50. One is, where do we put the stop? There's no ADA, there's no sidewalks along that portion of Highway 50, so it becomes a little bit more of a costly endeavor to build the infrastructure to provide that stop there. I know the drivers are like, let's get people to Slot World. People want to keep going to Slot World. So, I mean, there's a few requested stops in addition to what DD Formaster has mentioned to this board in the past. But it's a challenge to get out there. It's not Carson City's road, so we'd have to coordinate with NDOT and go through that effort. There are drainage issues. There's a lot to doing that, and I don't want to say it's a no, it's a never, but it's a challenge. And we talk a lot about balance, we talk a lot about trade-offs. In regards to, the FTA use of funds, it's something we're definitely aware of, at least I am. I haven't really informed Marcus on all those details and nuances, but it's in the back of my mind of, okay, where have we used FTA dollars, where have we used CDBG dollars, where have we used other dollars to make bus stop improvements, who's donated things to make bus stop improvements, can we repurpose those, is it still the same, donation purpose? Those are all things that are in the back of my mind that really make adjusting our routes actually very, very difficult. And that's probably why they've really never been adjusted in 20 years.
Thank you, Chris. I think there's a lot that goes on that not everyone is even aware of, and so I appreciate you explaining it a little more.
Chris, I didn't want to get into all the minute details because, this is a good start. But was the intent at some point to run the bus past the Jack headquarters on Buckeye? Because that doesn't quite show this on the map, but I thought that was the intent, or you're considering it at this point.
It was listed.
That was a hope, we, there's the apartment complex has built a pad for a shelter. We're planning on using some FTA dollars around the transit center itself for ADA compliance. So yeah, that's a goal. I think how we loop that around, we've had those discussions when we analyze times, and Marcus is much more involved in all these, but when we analyze the time it takes to run the hour loop, how much more time does it add? If there's passengers here, here, and here, does that exceed the hour? Do we have enough, flexibility built in at the end, layover time at the end to make that happen? And we're still working on some of that. I think my preference would be, can we run on Buckeye Way to serve the admin building? That would be my recommendation. I just don't know if we have all the timing worked out for all the other things. That's one of our goals to look at that in detail.
Is there any public thoughts, ideas, improvements, magic bullets? Come on now, help us out. Magic tires, yeah, that go round and round on the bus. No? Okay, I'll bring it back up here then for if we're ready, or you think we've discussed enough or have enough input again to help. Is there anything we've not answered for you that you think you need, that we need to more fully discuss?
I guess I'll just ask that, we're updating the regional transportation plan. There's a transit components into that, and guidance on, if maybe it's in the motion, maybe these are okay. We're wanting to make sure we're in alignment with what that draft plan is, working toward, and how it's going to be presented, and in terms of how these recommendations, we want all that stuff in alignment, like you mentioned, Madam Chair, as to this plan relates to this plan. The RTP for CAMPO is that overarching plan, that regional prioritization for transportation needs. So understanding how these fit into that and how we incorporate those would definitely be beneficial. I think that's the one item. If there was any other thoughts or comments on that would be helpful to staff.
And I think it's actually even the most difficult component is when, like I said, when we put a hat on that says, uh-oh, now I'm talking about the entire region, the plan, right? And so where does everything fit? And that's even, I talked earlier to Chris about my concern on survey questions, that things are taken out of context or not with enough context when people are given a survey. And I'll say it this way. So if I get a survey that gives me 3 choices and rank them, well, okay, in the context of that survey. That doesn't mean if I gave you one that said the entire RTP and here's everything for Carson City has $10 and how would you spend that $10? And you're going to get a completely different answer. So I'm always concerned when I look at these surveys, are they telling me enough picture, right? So is public transportation higher than road maintenance? But what was your definition of that? Because I don't think so. But it's who took the survey.
Just going to say who took the survey.
Who
and
took
since
the
this is
survey.
specific to Jack.
Right. And so it makes it's really hard for me to do what you're talking about, to say, do we rank the most important things in transportation by category and which category is higher. So I wouldn't put 100% of my money into potholes, right? Maybe we'd be on it. Would we put 100% into road fixing? Would we put 70% into road fixing and 15% into safe routes to school and 15% into Jack? I don't know. I think that's not a question we've really ever tackled as a group to really even ask ourselves. I only have, like I said, $10 or $100. How do
Well,
you see it?
And
I'm
what
interested.
funding is a little more flexible. So I think about Lyon County and Carson City and the perhaps connectivity between those two counties in terms of helping folks get to their doctor's appointments.
Mhm.
I see a real opportunity there. And so there is potentially money available that just hasn't been worked out yet, because that's a win-win.
I agree with that one. And I think that with every single plan, if an opportunity presents itself, we may be able to bring in new funding to meet a need that couldn't be used on one of the other items. And so you want to go ahead and tackle that if you can
And
get it.
then
Yes.
meet all the needs associated with that additional use.
Madam Chair, if I may apologize. I was just wanted to say, I'll just clarify my ask a little bit, is not necessarily ranking or prioritizing transit over anything else, but in terms of the items that could move forward into the RTP in terms of recommendations that could move forward for transit, that's where I was looking for inclusion, items that, I mean, like I said, maybe it's just part of the motion, and if these are the recommendations, then we'll work to incorporate them in a broad sense in the regional transportation plan. Not necessarily saying, well, we're gonna, to your point, 15%, 10%, 5%. We're not looking for that kind of guidance. I mean, we're welcome to provide it, but that wasn't my ask. So I apologize if I implied
Well,
that in
let's
any
get
way,
to
but-
specifics. What page, let's go to a page
Sure.
in the report. Let's try to then focus where you're at. So starting at what page are you talking about that we could go through the recommendations and say we
Just-
do or don't like it?
Just any of those in Exhibit 3, or any of those in the elements related to the operational efficiencies on packet page 190 and the second slide there, operational efficiencies, just elements like that. If there's anything in there that you'd like to specifically see or not see in, recommendations going forward and the regional transportation plan, that would be beneficial to us. And if they're generally, these are broad guidelines, these are fine, then that's fine too. I just wanted to make sure we as staff know kind of the direction to go, because there's a lot of options here, and looking to see if there was any way to narrow that down or provide more guidance.
So you mean you want to start like on page 190 and say if there's anything in the top A, B, C, or D that you're not interested in or think we shouldn't pursue? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, these are all options, and, we've looked at some of them. I know there's additional detail that you've all requested, and we can certainly provide that. But if there's any, like, non-starters, we don't want to do this, or, yes, do you think if we're gonna have to reduce service, here's something that may be good, or if there's another opportunity, have you thought about this? Those kind of elements, I think, would help us move forward a little bit.
Okay. Is there anything in that list that any of you feel strongly of should not be considered?
I
There-
would like to maintain the current span of service because what that does is that lays the foundation to be able to coordinate with other counties.
Okay.
I think it provides a good framework or scaffolding, if you will, to build on.
And I know you have it in here, but eliminating Saturday service saves you money, but I think enough folks use it. And I thought I saw
Don't
some
know.
other things that, maybe more folks would be using it on the weekends. But again, that's kind of like data driven. But for now, I think,
Yeah.
kind of like Lisa
And if you
said,
don't have enough to make a decision, then let us know that too. I mean, that's okay.
I don't think I don't think I have provided, I don't have enough information to make the decision. So I want to say, so let me say it differently. I think your B, C, and D should remain as items of consideration if you're fiscally constrained, right? So that's a little bit different look on this, but I don't think you're going to gain large dollars of Carson City General Fund being added in. But like Lisa says, I'm happy if we can add in service with Lyon County or Douglas County providing match. But I do think that at a point in time, we're going to be lucky without more subsidy dollars going across the operations from the city itself, the city general fund, we're going to have a hard time with A because costs are going to go up. It's as simple as that, right? Salaries go up, cost of buses go up. I'm hoping one of yours where you said long-term fuel prices that we're actually seeing those come down. But I think we're going to be lucky to hold on to A. And I think that's certainly our goal, unless I'm speaking out of turn. But I think that we don't want to lose service. But you have to keep B, C, and D only on the table if we're fiscally constrained. Does that make sense?
That's absolutely.
Okay.
I'll
Lucia.
I'll add, I'm very interested in staff's analysis of what we could do with the money from 2B to reduce redundancy and serve additional customers. The city has changed in 10 years, right? Or
Right.
25 years, as your banner says. So it may be that those funds could pick up riders that aren't served now. And so I would encourage staff to pursue that.
I agree with that. Okay. Does that help you with that one? Okay, and then.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go through every slide. That was a great example of kind of the feedback we were looking for. Thank you.
I don't actually mind. Well, here's what I don't want to, I don't want to adopt a plan and then we didn't discuss an area. And that's part of the overarching concerns for me is I did a meeting earlier today and it's funny because I talk about all the plans we have in the city, which we have a ton. And all of those plans though are focused in that plan area. And it's appropriate, right? That's where your focus is. That's where you're wearing the hat. But when you then have to take it all and put it together, you're like, uh-oh, some of the puzzle pieces don't fit quite so well here. But my other concern is I don't want people to say, well, but it's in the plan. You adopted it. It's in the plan. I know, but it's in the plan in the context of transit. It doesn't mean it's gonna, like I said earlier, doesn't mean on the level of everything it's gonna win in the overall plan. So I think it's important if there's things we can already tell you if we were acting on this, that one's not, it's not high on our list of things for you to spend your energy on, or, because it also takes a lot of staff time to do these activities. So I'd really, if there's areas or slides on here that you think impact your staff the most and staff time and where we're spending money with vendors and where are those places that we can help you then move that strategy the best. So is there another slide that really would help you guys?
I think we've talked about the operation quite a bit, so I think we've got some good direction there. Well, one area that we've been contemplating is microtransit. We don't have really enough to give you a good detail because there's a lot of options and a lot of potential. I think we're generally at the moment shying away from that recommendation right now. So that's why you don't see a lot of that. But we did, just for your all knowledge, we did do some initial thoughts on how could that work? Could we eliminate a route and run an area with microtransit?
all
it's,
this.
not something right now we're ready to move forward with in this plan, at least at this time.
I think we all would kind of agree with that, right? Mr.
Madam
Dodson?
Chair, what about this on-demand pilot project? Is that akin to the micro?
Page.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we need to include that, even though it's showed as a long-term thing.
Still,
I wouldn't focus too much on it.
okay. We all agree? Yep. Okay.
In terms of, we talked a little bit about the financial management, the 100% spare ratio, so that was great. Marketing and awareness, I think we plan to do those. Those are gonna take some staff time, but I think we've heard enough that, as Marcus mentioned, people want more information, people need more information. So I think we're gonna commit to doing many of those. And if there's other ideas that anyone has to get the word out there, maybe it's TikTok videos, Commissioner Novak, I don't use TikTok, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't.
Me neither.
But,
Maybe
you
we
know,
do something fun though with the high school
Yeah.
to let them make the TikTok video for you, or actually even find out, why are you riding the bus? I don't know, something fun maybe.
Mhm.
I'm giving out trophies for best attendance, things that I let the high school design for me and do, and boy, did those turn out good. Maybe they can,
Mhm.
though, do a video for you.
So I think those were the main areas.
Okay.
I just wanted to highlight, the RTP does not show Jack as being fiscally constrained, right? It's not fiscally constrained in 2050. So, we have to talk about what to do about that, and that's the reason that slide for those reductions is in here.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Okay.
Chris, one
Anything
last
else?
thing. I know you got some input from the drivers, but I don't know if it's covered by your contract, but First Transit's a big outfit. If they've got any other suggestions as well that haven't come up yet, because, they're transit pros.
Right.
So
Doesn't
doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So, you ready for a motion? I did public comment earlier and came back and talked, but nobody rushed up with their ideas, but maybe we have, I didn't even get a fancy tire out of any of them, so riding down the road on the bus, but I'll ask again, just in case we spirited up another thought to somebody. I'm still not getting a magic bus. What's going on? Okay, I'll bring it back up here then.
I'm going to move to accept the report and proceed with the recommendations for the Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan as discussed on the record.
Second?
I have a motion in a couple of seconds for approval as discussed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. Great discussion. I know it takes time,
have
but
these
it's
meetings.
worth it. Agenda item 6A, our Transportation Manager's Report. Chris, have anything to share with us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two items to share. The first, as mentioned by Rebecca Capular in the CAMPO meeting, is AB 6 from the special session dealing with school zones. We've reviewed that bill, and I know there was a presentation by Cameron Gresh, the Board of Supervisors last week, and he provided us some guidance, and I've been working with him on how it impacts Carson City and our school zones. I'm pleased to say that one of the things of the bill was related to how making school zone signing more consistent, and we've achieved that. Our school zones across Carson City have consistent signing. Our times are generally consistent or in alignment with the school start and end times, operating hours, and things like that. We don't have any school zones that worry in NDOT jurisdiction, so there's no needed coordination with that in Carson City. Other jurisdictions do have that. So the one element there is the bill strengthened language related to U-turns and passing in school zones, and our Carson City code is silent on those elements. So looking with Cameron at potential code amendments to make sure we're in compliance with the law in that sense. And then potentially updates to the speed limit policy just to make sure which should be under the purview of this board, just to make sure we're consistent with, again, the U-turns, passing, and some of those timing elements. But The Board of Supervisors approves the school zones through resolution. We did that not that long ago. So I think by and large, the AB 6 doesn't affect Carson City all that much. The last item, second item I'll note, and the last item, is that in January, there's a plan to amend the V&T plan of expenditures. It will be coming to the Board of Supervisors. That is looking at, staff is recommending a new project that would add a new project to allocate funding to local roads for that plan of expenditure, the V&T plan of expenditure. So that'll come to the Board of Supervisors. I believe I think first meeting is the estimate, and potentially the second meeting and so forth. Following that, the RTC may be tasked with identifying local roads for that funding, probably a little bit ahead of our normal schedule. So look for that in the springtime for local road project prioritization, assuming that goes forward and passes, of course, using that V&T money and any other money that should become available. So
Sales tax money.
sales tax money, should it become available, we can look at that as a board as what to do with that additional funding. So those are my two items. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 6B, our street operations and control report. Chris, says you.
I have nothing specific unless there were questions.
Anybody have a question on that one? Greg?
Chris, the Story County option, Carson won't be taking care of their signals anymore, is that what I heard?
Yeah, I know that the new signals, Story County is working on their own signals. I don't think we do much for Story County anymore. And I'd have to get all the details as to the agreements, but perhaps I'll let Darren Schultz cover that.
Darren Schultz, Public Works Director. I just got out of a meeting yesterday, so I actually have an update on that. Story County wanted us to initially be part of their program, but they wanted more control over the maintenance of their signals. So what they decided to do was to do an agreement with the city, but also concurrently hire a third-party contractor to do the work and kind of have us in the wings in case that didn't work out. But that is working out, and a long enough time has went on where they haven't need us to support them. So it's imminent that we will likely cancel that contract with Story County. They just don't need us, and we're fine with not going out there. So that's where it's headed.
Thank you so much. Okay. Nobody else says anything? Okay, then we are on to item 6C, which is our reports on our fuel taxes, et cetera, and our projects. Casey, there he
I know
is.
Casey's available for any questions. He can go through them up to the discretion of the board.
Is there any particular project that you'd like to discuss?
Oh, I think on the revenue, the one that you probably saw, the sales tax numbers, I don't know where they come from, but they're going down.
I'll take a shot at that one. The state implemented a new computer system software package, and how do I say this? We are having sales tax discussions with all of the counties that we are seeing wide swings is a good way to say it, right? That July over July, we were like negative 10%. And then August comes in and we're up 15%. So we're seeing these huge wide swings. It's like you said, when you look at the sales tax and say, what? But July, I think they're doing a bunch of catch-ups and fixes, and so it's going to be very difficult for us to do month-over-month comparisons. And I know that NACO is even looking, which is Nevada Association of Counties, at even auditing what's going on, because it's tough. It's tough looking at the numbers to say, am I losing money or gaining money? Last month I looked horrible. This month I look great. Oh, I'm back on schedule. So it's a tough nut. So you're not wrong to recognize it and say, what? Yeah, so it's the reality though. Very consistent if you look at prior years, but when you look at June, of 25, And then you're sitting up there in July and then suddenly now we're less than we've ever, anyway. Oy, oy, oy. Yeah, true statement. But we'll see if we end up with 4 million at year end. Yeah. So anyway, you're right. Anybody else have any question on a particular
Just
report?
look at all this EV charger revenue. I just don't spend it all in one place, you guys.
I know. Anybody else? Okay, how about anything in any of the capital projects? Do we have anything that we're seeing, any unanticipated issues on any of the projects? Or everything is going kind of, you always have little issues, but I mean, is there any project in danger or any project that's hitting where there might be a cost overrun or anything out there?
No, on this time, like you said, there's little things that come up in every project. We're moving right along. At the moment, we don't have any major issues coming on any of the projects.
We like that. So we still think everything's gonna happen.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good thing. Okay. Mr. Dotson,
For some reason, I want to try and get the final word in tonight.
your honor, go ahead.
It's really a biggie. On the Little Lane Rehab Project on page 237.
Okay.
Why is staff coordinating with NDOT for a notice to proceed? Is that a funding thing?
Yes, it's because of midway into this project, we added, what do we have? We have STBG funds in this project. And so then we had to begin doing all the NDOT reviews. And so typically you have a review with NDOT at 60%, at 90%, and 100%. But we came in with the ARPA funding, or with not the ARPA, the STBG funding later in the project. We're past 60%. So then we were back a schedule, and we thought that that wasn't going to be a big issue. It's not really a big issue, but it is having an effect on our schedule a little bit. So as soon as we have notice to proceed from NDOT, and right now they're currently in 100% plan review for that. And so as soon as we are, have received that NTP from them, we can go ahead and advertise because all of our other I's are dotted and T's are crossed, so.
Thanks, Casey.
Small hiccup, but it will go. Right. Okay, anybody else have one? Nothing? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you so much, Casey. Then we'll move on to our final public comment. Come on up, Mr. Costa.
Good evening. Mark Costa, Carson City resident. Listening to the discussions here, about Chris talking about, trying to tie these plans together and about the RTP being the overall arching plan, which we all have to go ahead and consider, and what options, recommendations will Campbell Board or the RTC consider. And these are important questions, I think, to go ahead and initiate at the start when we're doing these, starting to work on these plans, and perhaps have a general, in the military, what used to be called a commander's guidance that's issued before planning as to what the parameters and constraints are and what is important to accomplish in a given plan. And the RTP would be a good place to begin because that is the overarching plan and what everything should go ahead and tie into for that. So I think in the future is that, when we have a major planning event, that we write up this guidance as to what's important. And I know it's easier said than done, but using your prioritization, your five or six different goals that you have, and how this guidance addresses each one of these, and consequently, how you want the plan to address them. And then, it falls backward from there to the individual plans that we're talking about in this case here, the transit plan. Certainly the transit plan needs a lot to look at. Some of the comments I made on the RTP were related to transit. and, bicycle and pedestrian and things of that nature, because they all do have to be tied together under a certain guidance that need to be followed on that. And I would encourage that type of planning guidance to be issued, to the staff so they can go ahead and plan accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, then we've completed that. So I will just make the comment again, Mr. Dodson, thank you for your service. It has been a pleasure to serve with you, and please do come back or continue to communicate with us. Do not fall off the map. We still consider you a part of the family. So again, thank you for all your hard work on behalf of all the Carson City residents. It's
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to be a part of these two organizations. I think there's been good growth that's taken place during the time that I've served. I've seen progress made in a lot of areas, more refinement of the data, getting better systems out there. The local road safety program was a big one. And I think we've got a lot of good information to make informed decisions on. It seems like it always gets down to, how are we gonna fund this, in light of everything else. But
Right.
Anyway, I've enjoyed my time here and learned a lot. Hopefully I've contributed a little. So thank you very much.
definitely. Okay. Do I have anybody else? Okay. And if there's no objection, we are adjourned. And have a Merry Christmas, everyone, because we'll see you